Welcome, everyone. I'm Erica Freudenberger, the Outreach Engagement and Marketing Consultant at SALS, and I'm really excited to work with everyone on the next step of your strategic plan. The last time we were together, we reviewed the strategic planning process. We talked about why we plan, how to put together a planning committee to help you get the work done, and the difference between traditional and engaged planning. Today, we'll be focusing on creating a landscape review for your library to provide context for your planning. During the last session, we reviewed why we're doing community-based planning. To sum it up in a nutshell, we do this because it's a requirement of the New York State Division of Library Development to maintain a charter as a public library. It creates a roadmap to the future for your organization. It incorporates what really matters to people's lives and their aspirations for the future. It's a great way to bring new voices and perspectives into the library. It helps align your resources with your services and demonstrates very clearly to the public how the library uses its funds. It establishes how the library defines success and how it ensures that it's going to meet its goals. And finally, it communicates to the public how the work the library does benefits the community. At the end of the last session, your homework was to form a planning committee and to try the SOAR exercise. I hope you had a chance to do it, and I'd love to hear how it went. So send me an email or give me a call and let me know. A big part of planning for the future is understanding where we are now and our history. We can figure this out by doing a landscape review, which incorporates both internal and external data. The type of information we're collecting to inform our plan includes demographic information about your community, including who lives there and whether it's growing or contracting, library statistics that reflect how your community is using the library, things like circulation, the number of visits you have each year, and program attendance. Figuring out what key stakeholders are working on, which requires reaching out to other groups in town to see what they're prioritizing as a focus for the next couple of years, and finding out what your municipality's priorities are. A great way to do this is to review their comprehensive plan, which they have to complete every 5 years or so. We now face the age-old question, is the glass half full or half empty? Why do I ask? Because part of doing a landscape review is understanding what assets already exist in your community. When you ask people about what they'd like to see in their communities and what challenges they face, it usually boils down to two things, time and money. A lot of us think about resources as being finite. When resources are limited, we set priorities and determine how to carefully steward them in a responsible fashion. And we have to compete with others to get what we need. But what if instead of thinking about resources as being limited, we considered all of the talents, spaces, and organizations in our communities? When we do, we move from thinking about resources from a place of scarcity to one of abundance. The glass is no longer half empty, but half full. Asset-based community development embraces the appreciative inquiry philosophy, which recognizes people's potential talents and asks questions that challenge our assumptions about resources, among many other things. It sees people not as passive consumers of services, but as empowered participants who are capable of doing amazing things. It shifts the conversation from a lack of resources to a recognition of the full range of assets that may be found in every community. Asset-based community development, or as we refer to it, ABCD, is based on the premise that everybody has gifts, everybody has something to contribute, and everyone cares about something, and that passion is motivation to take action. At the core of ABCD is the asset mapping tool, which documents all the wonderful things that exist in our communities and how these assets can be used to help our communities move forward. It identifies and provides information about community assets, which could be the status, condition, behavior, knowledge, or skills that a person, group, or entity possesses, which serves as a support or a resource or even a source of strength to oneself and others in the community. It's a really amazing and invaluable tool. The time you invest in it now will pay off down the road when you're implementing your strategic plan, and it will pay off in so many ways. I do want to stress that it's a means and not an end in itself. Community assets can be easy to identify, locate, and map, especially when community residents are the sources of the information. The beauty of ABCD is that you're mapping local assets. And in most of our communities, as you begin to do so, you're going to find out that you're charting the community relationships as well. When we do this, it gives us a chance to think about who we'd like to work with, what organizations' work aligns with ours, and how we can support other community wide initiatives. Today, we're going to start by having you begin your asset maps, or as I call them, community resource plans. But this is just a very beginning of the work. As you move forward, you're going to want to involve as many people as you can in developing the map. And so ask your team members, your family, and your friends, your board. Ask everybody to take part and contribute. If we weren't all kind of still practicing social distancing, I would recommend inviting a group of stakeholders to an event and have them help identify and discuss the assets in your community. And you may want to consider doing something like that virtually, either through a Zoom meeting or even a shared Google Doc. The more participation you have in developing the community resource plan, the more robust it's going to be in the end. So please remember, when you're working on your community resource plan, include yourselves. You are one of your community's greatest assets. ABCD is a tool that recognizes social capital and its importance as a resource. It encourages a participatory approach based on empowerment and ownership of the planning process. By aggregating the data about the talents of your community, you're helping to build social cohesion, which we know is key to creating resilient communities. It allows us to explore questions like, how do we curate and harness the power of our community? How do we build capacity? Because when it comes down to it, when you want to get something done, it's all about relationships. A community resource plan codifies all of the resources you have in your community. It asks people to think about who they know, what they do, their passions, and their relationships. This last component, identifying the relationships and connections people have to each other, is one of the most important. It's going to come in really handy when you don't know somebody directly. It'll help you find a path to get to them. When I started as a library director, I kind of kept something like this in my head, but it took me a little while to realize this. It's not super helpful to anybody else. I created a spreadsheet so that it could be shared and people could add to it as they thought of things and help build it out with the people that they knew. Mapping your community's assets helps visualize the networks of service organizations, community organizations, neighborhood associations, and other groups that exist to serve the community. Community organizations can use this plan to network among each other and also create a database of assets that community members can access and maintain. A community resource plan pulls together the people, institutions, and by institutions I mean places like school districts, hospitals, museums, kind of any really large organization in your community. It also includes associations like garden clubs, the Rotary, Elks, Boy Scouts, what other specific groups you might have in your community, local businesses, and even spaces and places, which is especially important if you have a tiny library with not enough space to do all the things that you want. Identifying spaces and places provides you with an opportunity to get involved with creative placemaking and drive foot traffic to local businesses. Because remember, the library can only be as strong as the community it serves. When you involve community members in the creation of your community resource plan, the process itself can be an organizing tool. By engaging your community in a process of identifying existing or missing community assets, you can paint a really clear picture of the overall status of the community and organize around this cause of strengthening community resources. I suggest that you share your community resource plan with your board, your colleagues, and if you have a friends group with them as well. This is a resource that definitely benefits from more people working on it because everybody operates in their own sphere of influence. And it's really important to be able to identify people outside of your specific circle who could play a valuable role in helping your community reach its aspirations. As you fill it out, you're going to realize the depth and breadth of resources that already exist in your community and be able to tap into that abundance. As you set out to gather information about the community, begin by finding your municipality's comprehensive plan. It will give you an idea of what their priorities are, so you can identify what you're already doing to help them meet those goals. And it also helps you figure out what direction you want to be moving in going forward. It's especially helpful when you're reporting to your town council or board so that you can demonstrate how the library is working to support and advance the entire community. You also want to get some hard data to get a good overview of who's in your community and what challenges are faced. The best place to begin is the American Community Survey, created by the U.S. Census Office. It provides a broad overview of the community, providing a peek into who lives in your community, what the median income is, how households are organized, and even whether people are traveling for work. City Data is a great site for communities that have a minimum of 6,000 people, which I know limits which of our libraries can use this resource. But if your community is larger than 6,000, City Data compiles a bunch of information that includes census data, but also information from a lot of private sources. So it'll include info about businesses, ancestry of the population, weather, amenities, religion, nutrition, just tons of stuff. It's a really great, robust resource, but again, it is limited to larger communities. And finally, there's the National Center for Education Statistics, which is terrific for anyone who has a school district public library. This provides data culled from the census and other sources, but it also provides maps of each school district so you can see which communities comprise yours. Once you've developed an accurate snapshot of your community, it's time to pull together information about the library. You can start by reviewing library statistics from the annual report to the state for the past couple of years and make note of things like how many card holders do you have? What percentage of the total population of your community have cards? How is your library used? What is your circulation? What are the hot ticket items with the most circulation? How many people attend programs? What programs do they attend? What does library usage tell you about your community? You can then combine all the internal and external data and compare it to see whether the library reflects what's going on in the community. It will also help you identify any specific people or populations you may want to reach out to and include on your community resource plan. Thanks so much for making time to learn today. Our next session is going to focus on gathering public knowledge. Between now and then, please make some time to gather the internal and external data you're going to need to complete your landscape review. Please be sure to share the community resource plan with your board, staff, friends, and volunteers. The more people who participate, the better resource you'll have for your library. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.